This meeting to order for the Plan Commission of Village of Tinley Park for October 7th, 2021. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, can we get the roll call, please?
Commissioner Gaskell.
I'm present.
Commissioner Gatto. Here. Commissioner Lasciuto.
Here.
Commissioner Manny. Commissioner Maniatis.
Here.
Acting Chair Shaw.
Present.
Commissioner Vargas. Commissioner West. Chairman Gray.
Okay, we have a quorum this evening. We have two items on the agenda. Both of them are workshops. And any communications from staff?
Nope.
Hearing none. We'll move on with the approval of the minutes of the regular meeting of September 2nd, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Moved Commissioner Gatto, second.
Second.
Second Commissioner Lasciuto. Any comments or corrections on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor of approving the minutes of the September 2nd, 2021 regular meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Minutes are approved. And I suppose we have the second minutes to officially approve.
ZBA now as well?
Yeah, it was.
We had forgot to.
That one wasn't closed out, huh? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the July 8th, 2021 regular meeting for the Zoning Board of Appeals?
So moved.
Moved Commissioner Lasciuto.
Second.
Second Commissioner Gaskell. Any comments, corrections? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, the first item this evening is a workshop for Brookside Glen Villas, Crana Homes, residential subdivision and concept commercial, 80th Avenue and 191st Street rezoning, special use for a substantial deviation, preliminary final plat of re-subdivision.
Thanks, Acting Chairman Shaw. So this is a workshop for Brookside Glen Villas. It's a duplex townhome subdivision. This did come before the Plan Commission in November last year, so November 2020, for a concept approval. It is at 191st and 80th Avenue on the southwest corner, where this project is. As you can see there, and this is kind of where the residence is on Magnuson, or the Magnuson apartments. It's just to the east of that development that's currently under construction. Just as an overview, so because we haven't really done too many PUD processes, I don't even think anybody here has really gone through it since 2008. There obviously hasn't been too many large kind of new developments to this scale, especially residential-wise, that have happened in the village. So there's kind of a three-step process. That sometimes they can be condensed if it's a smaller PUD. You can do this all at once, or you can kind of, it stretches it out, kind of the bigger the development is, and kind of the bigger, the more pieces there are to the puzzle. So the three-step process is, the first one is conceptual, which is what the developer and the petitioner did in November, which is really just kind of give an overview of what you're looking to do. And it's really more of a feedback from both the Plan Commission and the village board to kind of give them some ideas of what you're proposing is something the village wants to see. PUDs are in themselves a kind of their own little zoning code, and usually it's something that's kind of unique. And out here, it's the overall Brookside Glen subdivision in that general area. that would be getting amended. So this lot was originally zoned for commercial, and that's kind of always been it's been envisioned. Just kind of with the market trends, and with them marketing this for over 30 years as something that's commercial and not getting any bites. They were looking at how can we develop this? What's the best idea? Frank and his team came before us with Crana Homes, and they've done some significant portion of the development of Brookside Glen in general. And he owned this lot, and he was just looking to say, I have a popular product, the duplex product that's before you guys, and something that's good in the market, something that Tinley Park doesn't really have, especially anything that's new. There's a few duplexes in town, but they go back to the 70s, 80s, and not really something newer like this. So the conceptual approval came before the Plan Commission. I'm not sure if any of you were even on this. Gatto, you'd have been the one. But this is, it was generally met with support of the overall idea, with a few kind of directions from both Plan Commission and the Village Board, things like adding a park, and some other things we'll get into as we go through the project. So that's the conceptual review. There's really nothing granted with that in terms of entitlement or zoning. But then what's before you guys today is the preliminary approval, so it gets a little more specific. It starts granting the actual underlying zoning districts and general approvals of what they're trying to do here. So product types, access points, circulation, not down to the very fine details. But then the thought is that third and final step, the final approvals, will be substantially in conformance with what you guys see today. But we can get into more detail. There's a potential for more variations or things like that to come up or get subtracted. And there could be some changes to kind of the fine details. But today it does kind of entitle this project, or the preliminary, not today, but the preliminary approval will kind of entitle what they're looking to do here, generally speaking. The zoning for this is currently B3, and it's part of the Brookside Glen PUD. The property to the west is zone R6, and that's the medium density residential, and that's the multifamily development that's under construction with the foundation, and that's called Magnuson. To the east, across 80th Avenue, is undeveloped B3 property, similar to this project. And then there's R6 and R5 residential districts kind of surrounding that. To the north is an undeveloped, unincorporated parcel that's zoned C6, which is kind of a general commercial zoning district under Will County. That's there to the north. And then to the northeast is vacant lot zoned ORI, and that's kind of the area in front of the Panduit headquarters building over there. The parcel is also located in the Urban Design Overlay District, and that kind of is more of a urbanized, denser, walkable development, things like putting buildings towards frontages, parking in the back, sidewalks, less curb cuts. But that does only apply to commercial development. So with what they're proposing before you today is really only preliminary on the residential portion of this. They're going to leave some commercial there that's a little more manageable for them to market, but that'll stay at the conceptual level for that. So that would come back for preliminary approval when they have a developer or businesses to go into that. I won't go into all the history of this PUD because it's pretty detailed in the staff report, and I'll thank Paula for doing the legwork on that the first time around. And this is, again, really kind of transitioned. It's been amended quite a few times, and that is typical of a planned unit development of this size. It kind of has some ebb and flow with the market demands and and what's working, what's selling, what isn't, what the village wants, what the developer wants. So it's been amended a few times. This area was originally a little bit larger commercial than even what's out there today. And then where you see the Magnuson Apartments and the townhomes to the south of this development was rezoned with a PUD approval to allow that to be residential, and then leaving the commercial that's out there today. So this will take kind of one more chunk and make it residential there as well. But it was a little larger of a kind of traditional shopping center with your big box retailers, Walmarts, Targets, Home Depots. That was kind of the vision of this corner, but that's obviously kind of been chipped away at. And in the market demand, I think both the petitioner and the village have really kind of pursued trying to get commercial on this corner. But it's been tough for those larger retailers that have a pretty wide radius to where they locate. And this area is kind of in between the Orland Tinley corridors, the New Lenox corridors, so it's tough to get some of those. And then also they look at competition, so with Brookside Marketplace there, that kind of eats up a lot of the chains that are doing well. So Brookside Marketplace, I think, has filled up a lot of their vacancies recently. That kind of happened over 2008 area. So they've been doing good over there, but they have most of kind of those traditional larger big box chains. Here is the concept plan that kind of came before the Plan Commission in November, and then the village board in December, and showed generally what you're going to see today. There are a few changes. There was the subtraction of one building. So this plan showed 100 units and 50 buildings, so 50 duplex. They're now 49 and 98 duplex units, but generally still has that same kind of flow and layout to it. And then the commercial, again, to the north of this, that's where we really kind of wanted them to keep a little bit of commercial, knowing that this area, Brookside Glen in general, it's a nice community. There's just not a whole bunch of commercial you can walk to. And we're aware of that. Economic development's aware of that. We're trying to get some things that can be walkable from Brookside Glen. Restaurants, stores, grocery stores, food stores, convenience stores, something that could be walkable out there. So this kind of keeps a kind of L-shaped corner along the busiest corridors and makes it a little bit more manageable for somebody to develop in there. So that's just conceptual in this view. That could all be developed with one developer, or one business and one building, or it could. This was something they just kind of put together as something that maybe kind of fits the market demand. So things like a daycare, drive-throughs, obviously in very high demand with COVID, that you guys have seen a lot of those come before you recently. Fast food, banks, that type of thing. So, and then here is the preliminary plan that's kind of before you guys again today, and just with some few minor changes, and then a little bit more detail in terms of the landscaping details, signage details, options for the building that were all in your packet. Go through some of those, but it is a pretty intensive list of everything that they submitted for this packet. So that's in the packet that you guys got. The landscaping here. Let me go back to this. So this concept plan, again, just preliminary proposal for 49 duplex buildings, 98 units. They're looking, again, to take this lot and move it from 100% commercial to more about 23% commercial, and 77% of it would become residential then. So they would be looking for a rezoning here before you guys, and then with approval of the village board to rezone this portion of the lot to R5, which would allow for the duplex units. You guys have had exceptions come before you previously for things like signage, or if somebody is looking to do landscape changes that don't meet the code, so that is considered an exception, similar to a variation, but you look at it more in terms of what the PUD is, how it fits the PUD and the overall development goals. With preliminary approval, what we try and do is call out as many as we can see. It'll really be the final approval that would outline, here's what you're allowed to do outside of the code. But throughout this, I kind of have them listed generally, what they would be deficient at, what they're kind of asking for, and anything unique or different from what the zoning code would allow, just to give you guys some idea of, does this fit generally what we've approved before for this type of development and have planned for. Landscaping, so a landscape buffer is proposed around the entire perimeter, so with the overall layout being internal to the roads that kind of surround it. So you have 80th Avenue to the east, you have Magnuson Lane to the west, and then Greenway Boulevard to the south of this. So everything's been kind of planned to be a little bit internal. Knowing this is a residential community, we didn't want any of these kind of fronting onto those major roads. So the outside has a pretty substantial buffer there. The buffer ranges from kind of 15 to 30 feet throughout that. And then there's additional setbacks from the units from that buffer yard. So if you have a duplex unit, it's an additional 30 feet you usually have. So you have at least 45 to 60 feet between kind of the roadway or the right-of-way and then where there would be a house. Compared to the concept plan, this is a little more detailed. They've added some additional landscaping to bring this closer into conformance with our landscape code. The landscape code can be fairly difficult to meet sometimes. It sometimes goes a little beyond what some of these can support. It would look nice maybe when you planted it, but it's more a personal opinion, but it's why I think you have all seen so many waivers from that come before you, is if you plant trees every 25 feet on right away and internal to a site, you start getting to a point where they kill each other off, or if you try and replant one later, it's got too much shade. So there has been some flexibility we've given to quite a few developments, but they got pretty close here, and I think meet that overall intent. The landscape plan itself doesn't show landscaping at the sign, but I think the developer has worked on that, and I think they do have a plan to meet that, so there'll be additional landscaping around the signage than what you guys see in the landscape plan. And that can come before you guys at the public hearing next. We should be able to get that to you. It can also be approved at the final approval stage. So in the staff report, it shows an overall breakdown of what the landscaping is in those buffer yards. The main shortage that they have are shrubs, but then they have quite a few understory trees that go beyond what the requirements are. So a little bit of a substitute out there, but that's due to not wanting, with this being a residential subdivision, having kind of shrubs around all the roadways for the association to maintain. It doesn't help the residents as much as the understory trees, the trees that kind of give it a little more vibrant look and kind of overall appearance. So they do have shrubs, just not quite to the extent that our normal buffer yards would require. And those, when they kind of front major roads, especially with commercial developments, that's what I think it's kind of picturing there more with the shrubs. So again, they've substituted some of those understory trees in there. Fencing is kind of a big part of this because it surrounds the majority of this development. So they have kind of that wrought iron style, but it's aluminum black fence that surrounds the overall development. With staff's recommendation, we did request that the north side of this that would front the future commercial actually use a privacy style fence. Just if you kind of look at the overall concept plan, you'll see you could have headlights or cars facing that, and you kind of have kind of a main roadway connection point on that. So for the time being, when nothing's there, it may look a little odd because you're going to have a fence that's most visible from 191st Street, but we think when this overall development gets completed, that will be the best solution, because you're going to have backyards of these duplexes backing up to what could be some type of commercial, and that'll kind of help buffer any type of noise or headlights beyond just the buffer yard as well. So they have the buffer yard, they have interior lot landscaping on each lot as well, then you'll have the fence, really making sure there's some good separation there. Coming out of the concept discussion from both the Plan Commission and the Village Board was to work on getting a tot lot park placed in here. The home types here are kind of one-story duplex. It's age targeted, is I think what the term is. It won't be age restricted at all, so anybody can move into these. But they really kind of have a mindset of maybe empty nesters, older clients, seniors that are looking for something like this. Someone with health problems. But it can be anybody. It can be younger families, and maybe this is their starter home. So the thought there was a tot lot park kind of helps both of those segments. It doesn't take up a ton of space, but it gives, if you have grandchildren or children, you'll be able to come to this park. And that is really the overall park requirement was met with the original PUD, but since they're adding basically a little bit more residential, this kind of helps cover that additional residential density they've added. And they've worked with the Park District, been in contact with them, so is the village. And this is just kind of an example of what they're looking to do. So this is a more recent one from the Frankfurt Square Park District, and the design, that overall area that it takes up. So with the final approvals, they'll have an actual design for that site. We'll have the petitioner work with the Park District, come up with what the Park District wants to see there, and then they'll build that. They can also kind of clarify which phase and when they're going to build it, and then when it'll get dedicated to the Park District. Architecturally, the site's got quite a few options, so they kind of have three overall types or designs or models, and those can all be mixed or matched. So in the packet, they have A, B, and C, so you can have A and B together, you can have A and C, and you can have B and C. So, and those can be flip-flopped in any way. Within that, then, they have different options, so different roof options, parapets, wall, brick colors. We have some of the materials here, some of the colors here, and then there's an overall option chart in the staff report as well, for all the materials that are there. And the goal here is with almost any duplexes, townhomes, you do get some, they look generally the same, right? It's a little different than detached single family, where you maybe really do get some different architecture. Typically a townhome or a duplex, they're going to look similar. But the goal here is not to have them all be exactly the same. So you'll get different colors, you'll have different, some will have stone, some will have different colored bricks, different roof lines, and then different overall setups. So similar, but the goal here was really to give it a varying streetscape. So this is an example they kind of put together to scale it a little bit and give you an idea of, if you're looking at a street and there's multiple homes right next to each other, here's kind of what the streetscape would turn out to look like there with the setbacks, and then the building styles. The overall design of the subdivision is a little bit circular and some curved streets, so you don't even get too many locations where there's multiple homes stacked. There's one block where there's that kind of center of it where you get 6. Sorry, 5, and on the west side of it, then you get 6. So the most you get kind of in a row is 6 buildings in a row, or 5, and then kind of in the outer ring, it's a smaller amount there. So the goal was kind of to create a nice streetscape through this new subdivision. And this meets our masonry and exterior requirements for materials, which is first floor brick on all 4 sides. You can substitute stone in for up to 15% of that, so they've done that here. Bring in some stone, carry brick around the first floor. The kind of the parapet or roof areas that are in there are hardy board, so the quality material over, say, a vinyl siding or aluminum siding. So they've kept it pretty high quality materials here, which in a fairly traditional design, which is kind of what Crana Homes has done over the years. So matches kind of what's out there in Brookside Glen now. Signage, so there's 2 signs, 2 subdivision signs that'll be part of this that comply with our standards. Those designs were there to be a little different, but kind of tie into those bigger Brookside Glen signs that are there throughout the Brookside Glen subdivision. And there's 2 of those signs at the entrance to Greenway near this. So these will be along at Greenway where you actually enter the site, and then along 80th Avenue where there's the other access point. So there's 2 plats that'll be before you guys for approval. The first one is really so they can rezone this, because this is one lot with one zoning district, and they're looking to now have 2 separate zoning districts. They need to at least formally subdivide this into those 2 lots, because you can't have dual zoning districts on a single lot. So this will divide it between those 2 areas you've seen in the concept plans, and then now in the preliminary plan, with lot 1 becoming R5 zoning, and then lot 2 remaining B3 zoning. The other plat, and that will be a final plat, again, that would formally subdivide those. The second plat is called a preliminary plat, which really lays out the basic framework for this. But sometimes the dimensions can change slightly depending on how engineering is, as well as where easements would go. So you're typically going to have all of your utility easements, drainage easements, everything like that would be on the final plat of subdivision. But they haven't quite gotten to that point. Final engineering to that level takes a lot of time and a lot of money. So that's why these are kind of broken up between preliminary and final, as it kind of helps them build towards having some certainty that the money they're spending, they're going to get back. So the thought is it will be very, very close to this, but then they'll be back before you for final approval for the plat and the final PUD documents, and that's when this will be memorialized. The one thing I forgot to mention is also they're called CCNRs, which are covenants, conditions, and restrictions. So basically the rules of the association. They have a draft, kind of some draft CCNRs. The final ones would come before you guys with the final approval. So those are in there, just kind of regulate things like what you can do with your house. Those become part of the PUD documents as well. So for these, you can't have accessory structures, for example. They can't have sheds. The final one is part of the PUD. So normally an HOA can change the rules, and they still can. But anything that is part of those covenants that come before you for the PUD will actually be part of the PUD document. And so they can't become less restrictive unless they were going to come for a deviation. So if it was minor, we have some rules and definitions of what's a minor deviation. They can potentially just go through, like if they were changing colors that they wanted on the building. And they wanted to change it to a taupe and not a red, or do something different with the mailboxes. They could potentially do that as a minor deviation. If it was anything major, like building additions, accessory structures, single-family homes, changing the intent of this development, it would come back before you guys. So I will stop talking now. The standards are in here as well for the special use, site plan approvals, architectural approvals, rezoning. But I'll give it up to you guys to see what kind of questions you have. The petitioners here as well to answer any questions.
Okay. Thanks for the presentation, report. We'll just hop right into it. Start down here on the left side. Commissioner Shudo, some questions, comments?
One comment, I still think that this is a very good-looking project, and I like the fact that they're bringing these duplexes, which you stated Tinley Park doesn't really have too many of these style homes. I think that's great. The one question I have is with regards to the access points, and I know maybe this hasn't been fully discussed yet because of they don't really have anything set for the commercial part of it yet, but with the access off of 80th Avenue, will there be access off 80th Avenue into the residential part?
Yes, so that will be a shared access. That's kind of the one part that will be shared. If you kind of see, you'll drive in there, and if you went right, you'd be in the commercial. If you went left, you'd be in the subdivision. So that's kind of the one shared point and that's really because they can only get one full access on that side of 80th. So that's, if they could get two, I'm sure they'd do that, and they'd have two separate ones. But with just kind of the limited access points that the county and the village likes to have, it helps avoid traffic issues. That one would be shared. That's actually in the final plat as well. So with the final plat, we have a cross-access easement that will be recorded for that one access point, because let's say this didn't go forward and we have this zone commercial and residential. It could get a different developer that comes in and does something a little different, or maybe commercial develops first. Either one will be able to build that and have that access point there.
Okay. I don't have anything further.
Commissioner Gaskell?
I have nothing.
Down this side, Commissioner Gatto?